All right, everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of In the Flat Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Kill, joined again this week by Jess Saban and Jordan Schultz. This week, we're going to continue to dive into your mailbag questions. Keep sending those our way, and we'll talk about the latest news in college football. So let's start off first with a little bit of news. So a couple things. Maryland hired former Michigan and Miami offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis as its offensive coordinator. Chad Johnson, the former show-off wide receiver for the Bengals and other NFL teams, has been hired by Florida A&M as a program ambassador and consultant. And then former Air Force assistant coach Bill Sheridan was given a 3-year show cause penalty by the NCAA due to recruiting during the 2020 COVID dead period. So, a little bit of a coaching news, not much out there. I think things are starting to get settled with coaching moves and those type of updates. But two of the news items that kind of stuck out to me this week that we can kind of talk through is FAMU, offered a scholarship to 11-year-old track star Rudolph Blaze Ingram. Guys, how young is too young? If you're a coach or athletic program, are you offering an 11-year-old if you feel like he's got the skills at 11 years old? Start you, Jess. What do you think?
No. I mean, no.
You're probably not even going to be there 7 years. Most coaches, right?
No,
So,
you have no idea, if he's gonna grow. What your interests are still gonna be. Like I imagine for a lot of these guys, they're gonna grow up. They're still gonna be doing athletics, but what if they're just not all that good? Like you're hyped up at 11 years old. You might not just be that good. It makes no sense to me.
what are you, Jordan? You're a head coach. You're going to go out there and get that 11-year-old, get him on board?
No, not at all. Like Jess said, it's they're still young. They haven't developed everything yet. You don't know. You don't know what's gonna like. I've seen many, my friends that at that age were really good at sports, really good at this, and then they kind of just fall off. And you never know what that body's going to build into. He could have hit his limit of height already. He could, so you don't know what's going to happen in the next 7 years when he's 18 and he graduates high school, and then what?
Hey, is there any benefits though? Because I'm thinking like, hey, how if he's the next big thing and you were the first one to offer him, he always remembers that kind of thing. I mean, if he sucks down the road, does it grow? Can't you just pull the scholarship? But I guess that's also a bad look, right? So,
yeah, I mean, there's some positive to it, but at the end of the day, there's so many unknowns that, he's 11 years old. I don't 7 years until he gets to college.
you don't know what his educational thing will look like. Will he even be a fit for your university? I mean, some of the top tier schools, they're not going to do this yet because they're probably thinking hey, is he going to be a fit for what we do here? I don't even know how he plays against every competition. Yeah, he's a track star. He's not even a football player. So that's why I thought was kind of crazy.
I want to know how much they're offering him. All right, I want to see this contract they're sending out.
Full ride,
NIL, all this 1 million, 11-year-old, come to our school, we'll give you this. He probably signed that thing right away.
I'll be coming to school right now. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll track for the next 7 years on this podcast. We're going to track the journey of Rudolph Blaze Ingram and see where he ends up. And this will be maybe we'll get him as a guest as we'll be talking about him so much over the next 7 years. Next up, before we move into the mailbag, is the House Committee is set to hold a hearing on NIL rights with new NCAA President Charlie Baker on March 29th. Are we confident anything will happen with NIL? Jordan, what do you think? Charlie Baker's coming in. He really wants to. He's coming from a government type of position. He really wants to come in and fix NIL. Some of the conversations he's been saying. Are you confident he can get that done here with the House Committee?
I don't think the first meeting about it, March 20. It's going to be a long, drawn out conflict that we're going to see for a while. Even we might see some things change from this meeting, but I don't think it's really going to impact so much right now. I just think it's way too early. He's it's his first year in his career there, and so I don't know if he'll be able to fully ratify what NIL is doing right now, to many schools. But yeah, I'm not super confident in them getting any huge thing changed and fixing what is wrong with it.
I tend to agree. It's going to be hard in this first meeting, but my hope is that this kind of sets that North Star for where they need to go to fix it. What do you think, Jess? You think? Obviously, we haven't heard much from Charlie Baker. We don't know much about him, so I don't think we can. None of us can answer like if he's the man to get the job done. But this is a positive start, right? Is there anything you want to see in this meeting that will give you hope for the future?
Nothing in particular. I mean, there are just so many holes in the whole NIL situation that, as Jordan said, it's nothing. I don't think anything's going to come about after, a first meeting. I imagine, honestly, nothing's really going to get done for months, maybe even a year. We have to see how the system plays out. We have to see so many different things. It's a very complex issue. And I mean, there's so many ideas that I think we've talked about in the past here, our thoughts of fixing it, concerns coaches have raised, but I don't know enough about this guy to say, as you said, I don't know. None of us know enough about him to say, like, is he going to be the guy to get it done or what? But it's going to be a long process. That much I know.
No, for sure. All right, but we'll definitely bring you some updates after that hearing to see, what was talked about, maybe our thoughts on it and where we think it's going next. So I'm interested to watch that one. All right, let's jump into your mailbag. So we'd love to see questions. So let's see what some of these questions are for this week. So first up, if you were a coach and pay was similar, would you want to coach in the NFL or college? This is a question coming up because there's a lot of college coaches going to the NFL at the moment. Because they don't want to recruit, or it's the higher, you think of it's a higher level of work that you get to do. But here, the pay is similar. You get to, have an opportunity in NFL or stay in an opportunity in college. Which one are you picking, Jordan?
See, it'll depend on a lot of things. Like, it'll depend on, is it head coach or am I offensive coordinator?
Let's say assistant coach in this case.
Assistant coach. I honestly, like, you go to college way and you have a better chance of staying there a little longer. But honestly, I would say probably go to the NFL if I'm an assistant coach, because we've seen a lot more assistant coach that go to the NFL come back to college as head coaches. And I think that's what I'm looking at here is like, I want to be a head coach somewhere, no matter if it's NFL or college. Either way, and if I'm in the NFL and I do a good job, I can be a head coach in the NFL at some point. If I don't do a super great job as an assistant, but I am still good, decent enough, I can get that head coaching job in college. So I'm going to pick NFL, even though the pay is the same. But I feel like you have a lot more backing in a lot more ways, in a sense, in the NFL, because you have a means to get those players easier. Besides, like, you don't have to recruit as hard, but if you're saying head coach, college for sure. But right now, as an assistant, NFL is where I would want to go.
All right, good perspective, Jess. Where's your head leading at?
Well, it depends which team. Like, I mean, kind of just popped up there and other shoulder there. I'm a Giants fan, so if I'm getting an offer from the Eagles, I'm gonna have to turn that one down. But if it's ECU or Rutgers, I'd take that over probably most teams. I mean, if Notre Dame came to either of you and like, yeah, we want you to be an assistant coach, you guys would take that in a second. But I mean, in terms of like work and everything, I think I'd probably choose NFL. There's so much that goes into college, so much recruiting, so much planning, the off season, all that sort of stuff. At the least with the NFL, it feels like there's a little more breathing room, between, just going out to scout, the combine, then you got the draft, and it's kind of like a bit of a dead period because free agency's over. With college football, there's like no breaks. You're always recruiting. You've got spring practice, you got summer, you got the season, then you got the bowls, and then you're still recruiting. It just feels like it's more never ending.
Yeah, all good. I think that's probably why you see a lot of college coaches go to NFL today. Me personally, I just always seen myself more as a college person. Like even like watching the sport, I just love watching college football more. Just the school spirit and like I know they're both playing for money now, but I just feel like more emotion in the college game. And I like the fact that I'm a competitive person. I want to go out there, get the best players, and help my team win. Where NFL is like a factory. They're bringing in players, and you're supposed to get them to play. It's just a different, more. I would say I have more fun in college. It's probably more professional type in NFL, and I definitely want to be more fun, competitive type environment. So I think I'd be better in the college game, but
College does feel more personal with
yeah.
the winning and the losing. It does have that kind of effect.
Yeah, and I think most people that and a lot of people, there's some people that like for me, I had to go to Notre Dame about cheer for them, but there's a lot of people that went to Notre Dame, so they feel like they're part of that ownership of that team because they went there or they, like for me, I've been Notre Dame fans since '88, so I feel like a personal connection since I was little. So in NFL, it's a little different. The players is free agent, and that's sort of what's happening with transfer portal, which is what I'm hoping doesn't happen, but where your whole team could be gutted. You have a whole new team you're rooting for, and it feels weird, more corporate than the college game. But yeah, both have their pros and cons, I'm sure. Um, all right, March Madness is here, so I'm not going to ask you guys. Maybe towards the end, I'll ask you who you think is going to win the March Madness. Hope to have an answer ready for that. But with March Madness ahead of us, what would be the dream Final Four in college football, like in the playoff? If it's a 14 playoff, maybe and put it in two categories. Which four would have the best ratings, and what would be the best matchup? And maybe it's the same one. And so I can kick us off. With the best ratings, I think you're going to probably look at Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Alabama, just because those typically are the top of the rating list. At least there's probably a good 10 teams that hover around the same. Those would be, I think, the best ratings, and I think the TV networks would love those. As far as the best matchup, you probably want to go with teams that recruit the best talent, right? So you're probably thinking Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. Um, I'm trying to think of a fourth team that would is recruiting very well.
Right
Those
now,
are
I mean, Texas is number 3 in the recruiting rankings currently, but over the past few years, I'd probably say Oklahoma's typically up there, but they've been dog walked.
yeah,
Clemson,
Clemson, I guess, but then Clemson's been having a tough time with it.
they just need to
Really,
figure
and that's the problem. I think the last few years, this 14 playoff, there's 3 really good teams usually, and then there's that 4 if you don't know quite who that should be. I think for this next year coming up, best matchup, maybe you look at those top teams up there, maybe like a Florida State or some team like that for this upcoming year. But Jordan, what do you think? What are your what do you think are the 4 like TV dream matchups and maybe the 4 best matchup?
See, I'm with you on those 4. Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama. Honestly, you could probably throw. You can take out either Michigan or Ohio State and put in at Georgia. I think that right there could be the TV matchup. I mean, I feel like every Notre Dame fan wants to see Notre Dame play Michigan again, like in a big way. So, there's probably a good 5 teams that could go into that. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Notre Dame will get those good ratings. Best matchup, I mean, the top 2 SEC teams and probably the top 2 Big Ten schools. I think that right now is what.
Yeah, see, I thought about that, but then I think back to Michigan last year with TCU, where TCU just kept scoring on them throughout. I mean, it wasn't even a close game. So that's what I'm thinking about talent. Is there anybody else with talent like Ohio State outside of the SEC that maybe USC? I don't know.
USC defense, like Ohio State and USC, feeling to me really close
because they good
Just
offense, but their
their
defense
defense
lacks.
is not there.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, one thing that Ohio State has that USC probably doesn't is they got the trenches.
Yeah,
That's why they were able to go toe to toe with Georgia. They had the weapons on the outside, they had the quarterback, but then they were able to keep that quarterback upright. And then it wound up being, kind of a shootout, but I mean, that's just kind of where football is going anyways. So many rules that benefit the offense.
But yeah, I mean, it's so hard to choose. I mean, it could be, like I said, anyone in the SEC. I mean, the big teams in the SEC, big teams in the Big Ten. Even ratings. I feel like a lot of Big Ten games get the most ratings anyway already. Like Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State. They get those ratings.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten and SEC, they pretty much dominate the ratings because it just those fan bases seem to be more passionate about watching it all the time. So whereas like the Pac-12 and Big 12, they just don't watch as much, So I think it's definitely be a combination of those. Just anybody different we haven't talked about would be in your fours, like anybody that maybe would surprise us.
I mean, in terms of, quality of a matchup, you got the Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Then I guess I'd throw in Michigan. They've been consistently up there. Interestingly, in terms of viewership, I think you have to have a Ohio State, Michigan game. Like, I feel like that's a must. And then I would go Alabama and Texas. Texas, I know they don't have as much watching, but like the stadium, it's a historical program. You get some of that, kind of South Central, that area, like the Texas, Oklahoma, that area. Those people are nuts. They're crazy about college football. Part of the reason I think that so many of them haven't had the viewership is that they just haven't been very good recently. I mean, Oklahoma but it always felt like they were like a step behind the Ohio States, the Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, when that would kind of cycle through, particularly when the playoffs first started. So I think, like Ohio State versus Michigan, then you got Alabama, Texas, especially if Texas is back, if Texas ever is back, then I think that's going to be in the next 2 years or so. Unlike you guys, I have faith in Arch Manning, but
No.
especially like if you're
bookmark
telling me
this
that
time
if Texas
frame.
makes the playoff with a Manning at quarterback against Nick Saban in Alabama, that wouldn't.
Well, that's a good. Yeah, I mean that's good TV rating. I just don't see that happening. Is what I'm saying. Is like because I don't think Arch Manning's good.
That's. I mean, in terms of but like right now, in terms of like actual probability and quality of matchup into a safe bet, it's just top 2 SEC, top 2 Big Ten. But that's not a fun way to answer it. So I mean, my kind of like crazy ideal playoff 14.
Don't
playoff.
say Rutgers.
ECU.
Don't say Rutgers.
No. With some level of realism here. So Rutgers ECU, it ain't happening. As much as I would love it, it ain't happening. USC, Texas, Miami, Alabama.
Oh God, I hate that, man. I always hate those 4. I hate Miami and I hate Texas. So I guess hate's a strong word. They're always overhyped and like.
Well, like because like particularly when I was growing up, in the early 2000s, you had USC's run with Pete Carroll. You had the brief time period with the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, arguably the greatest college football team of all time. Then it kind of transitioned to the Nick Saban Alabama years not too long later, and it's just kind of been that ever since. It feels like every now and then there's a Jameis Winston, Florida State, Cam Newton at Auburn, throws a wrench in the thing. Ezekiel Elliott, that 2014 Ohio State team. But like, I feel like that could be fun, get some of those teams back. You've got a West Coast team and USC. You've got, the powerhouse that is Alabama. You get Texas back. And then on the East Coast, you got Miami, kind of hit all sectors there. I mean, I think that could be kind of interesting.
I think it would be. It all depend on who plays who.
That's true.
Because I don't know if anyone really would care if like Texas plays USC or Texas plays Miami.
I wouldn't mind seeing Texas USC because it's a rematch of the
Yeah.
classic national title
That,
game, though.
but
Rose
like
Bowl.
like Texas Miami isn't really going to
Well,
want
nobody wants to
that
play
game.
Miami. I just feel like Miami could eventually get back there. I'm not a big fan of like them the last 20 years. I guess it's since that time frame. But hey, I think Mario Cristobal's there, and I think if he gets them with the right talent, I mean, it could be interesting to
Maybe you
watch
sub
again.
out Miami for Penn State. Give them some love. You get that Big Ten team in there. Could happen.
That won't happen.
If they get over the hump, they could definitely.
Yeah, they've
It's
been
been
saying
long
over the
and-
hump for like 12 years now.
It's the same. It's like we're talking about Texas again.
I don't know, like I think maybe like Oregon, but then you're talking two Pac-12 teams. But I kind of like what Oregon's doing with Dan Lanning there. So I wouldn't mind seeing like them. That would be a pretty fresh matchup. I wouldn't mind seeing like a TCU in there or like another Big 12 team in there, just to kind of mix it up a bit. Yeah, Nebraska. I wouldn't mind seeing Nebraska back in there. It's been a while,
Yeah, I mean, like again, we're talking about the historic programs here. Kind of get that history.
I wouldn't mind Wisconsin with their building there now. I wouldn't mind seeing Wisconsin with an air attack, in a game like this. So it'd be interesting to see. All right, let's talk about this. Which of the top current, like I would say, big dogs of college football, which we kind of feel respectively is Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. Which one do we think is going to be the first to fall from that top tier, and who's the most likely team to replace them? So, Jess, you're on the hot seat. Who's going to fall out of that top three first, and which team is going to take their spot?
Don't say Rutgers.
ECU.
Obviously, the answer is ECU. Then, if it's not Rutgers, come on. I'm gonna say Ohio State. Is going to be the first to fall. Ryan Day's had some issues. They've had some decommits. Even this year, they've kind of fallen a little bit in the recruiting rankings. Meanwhile, Alabama, Georgia have just been consistently up there. And I mean, that's the thing with college football. It's just teams like that. They don't rebuild, they reload. And no one's been better at reloading than Alabama and Georgia, it feels like, the past 4 to 5 years. Clemson, has taken a step back. And if I had to pick one of them, I guess I'd go Ohio State. Replace them? I think I'd go USC. Just because of what Lincoln Riley showed he can consistently do at Oklahoma. We know he can recruit. We know he's going to have that offense, right? Will he ever figure out the defense? That's the question. I think I'd either go USC or, as we were talking about, Texas. Like for me, it's a lot of, are you able to recruit? And the reason I'm going USC over Texas is because Lincoln Riley can recruit, and he has shown he's able to get to the playoffs. And we've shown that he can get there consistently, especially when he has the quarterback. Now, whether or not he gets over that hump and wins it, that's a whole nother question. But, even Ohio State hasn't, won that much, but they're able to, it feels like they're always there. They're always right on the cusp. And USC, I think, can offer more resources, mainly just the state of California, that maybe Lincoln Riley didn't have when he was at Oklahoma. There's a little bit more glitz and glamour with USC. I mean, that's the whole reason, as we were talking about earlier, Pete Carroll in the early 2000s, he utilized that. If Lincoln Riley can do the same, I think USC is going to be the team that replaces them.
Good call. Jordan, what do you say?
I'm with you on the Ohio State. I just think, like you said, Ryan Day, he hasn't really shown a lot. I mean, he inherited some things. He brought his own things. So I don't know if we've really seen himself yet. And I don't think he's that guy for that team. I don't know. I think the biggest thing is that defense has always been wishy-washy, and I think that's the biggest thing holding Ohio State down. And they're recruiting slowly going down, just because the Big Ten has a lot of off-season problems, right? Off-season drama right now. But if I had to pick like an order, it'd be like Ohio State, I think Alabama will be next, and then Georgia. I think Alabama, Nick Saban is slowly easing his way out. And that just talks about it this year and things like that. Yeah, they have the best recruiting class. They have all this, but I just think things are slowly going away for him because people are finally understanding how to. Took him long enough, finally understanding how to play against them. But replace Ohio State. I mean, I probably have to choose another Big Ten school in a sense. I don't think USC. The difference is Oklahoma could recruit all over there because there wasn't a lot of teams that were good enough to recruit and could get what Lincoln Riley could. California right now is the teams are really good. The Pac-12 has this past year teams that are good. The Big 12, not a lot of teams are big like when Lincoln Riley was there. So I couldn't pick USC, Jess. I'm sorry. I'm not a USC fanboy. I know you and Caleb Williams out here going to parties and things. But I think to me, replace them Michigan. I think if Michigan can just get that consistent quarterback, and I think they could easily get to that point. I think Michigan the last 2 years is showing they're growing and showing that they are getting better than Ohio State at recruiting, at just game plan, at just developing players. And like I said, it has shown the last 2 years they've really dominated against Ohio State, and I think they'll just take that crown from Ohio State and put it on themselves.
All right, good call. For me, it would be Alabama. I think Ryan Day will continue to keep Ohio State where they are because I feel like they'll have they have the talent at Ohio State to beat most of the rest of the Big Ten. So I think they'll be able to stay where they are. I don't know if they'll win the national title, but they'll be able to kind of stay where they are. Why I think Alabama will fall off is because I think Hugh Freeze going to Auburn will start pulling some of those Alabama recruits out of the state, moving them to Auburn. So it's going to start impacting recruiting a little bit there. But I also feel like Nick Saban's teams last few years have been really undisciplined teams, and he continues to have this coaching turnover. I don't know how much longer at his age he can keep it up with continually to turn over the entire staff and continue to recruit at this rate when he has Georgia really taking his success and continuing to run with it, and then having Auburn back where they are and have LSU here. This is going to pull recruits from him, and he's going to have lesser recruits than he's had in the past with more undisciplined teams. So I honestly just feel like it's going to be Alabama. They're going to fall off. Now, they may not fall off the planet, but they're going to fall off where I don't think they're going to make the playoff that much anymore. But I could totally be wrong with that. But I also think they'll retire next couple of years, and then that definitely will have them fall off the map. As far as who will replace them, I think it's LSU. It's the easiest place to recruit. You can be a terrible coach, no offense, Ed Orgeron, and win a national championship because you get the right players there. And Brian Kelly's a good coach, and he'll have an easy time. He hates recruiting, but he doesn't really have to leave his backyard to recruit. He can take a drive down the road, get a recruit, go back home. And that's perfect for him. And I think that's why he took that job. And so I think they'll get the players, and I think they'll be, at least for about a 5-year period, once he gets it going here next couple of years, I think they'll take the place of Alabama and go head to head with Georgia for the SEC crown. So nice different perspectives there, but I think we'll see if any of us are right. All right. Wrap it up here. Let's jump into March Madness. This is a college football podcast, but I would love to hear your thoughts on who you think is going to win it all for college basketball. There's a lot of interesting matchups, and usually the best team usually does not win this most of the time, I feel, because all it takes is one off night, and then you're out of the tournament. So, Jordan, what do you think, man? Do you think Alabama's going to take it? You got Houston, you got UCLA, Duke. Who you got? Who you got winning the title?
Oh man, it's such a hard. I don't know. I still haven't made my bracket.
Gotta
get on it. Man. Yeah, man, you gotta get on that.
I know. I'm making it. I gotta make it tonight. All right. I know. I feel like this year is probably one of the harder years because there wasn't there was some dominant, but no one like Purdue lost to Rutgers, and we saw Rutgers lose last night. If we want to talk about it, but honestly, Houston, I think Houston's going to win it all. I think Houston has probably one of the most all around teams.
Okay, Jess, do you agree?
No, Houston had out of all of like the top teams, I think they had the fewest quad one victories this year. They played
Their
two
star is injured too, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, Jordan, but
it's fine.
Marcus
they
Sesser,
played two ranked teams over the course of the year. They lost to one.
Why are we talking about what I picked, Jess? Who do you pick to win it?
Because Tony asked if I agreed, so I
You
felt
could
like
just say
you were
yes or no.
taking a
Jess, who
dump
do you
on your
pick?
No, what I
Um,
just said is your pick is terrible. He's going to explain to you why it's terrible. And
Jess
then
is just
we'll go back.
upset
Then we'll go to his
Rutgers
pick.
is not in it. Okay.
uh,
I don't see ECU.
You're not
in this
wrong.
either.
I'm ticked. But I have a few different brackets that I've already made. Each one I'm up getting a different result. But I think I'm leaning towards either UCLA or Kansas. I think UCLA has the best chance of being the first West Coast team in like forever to win it all. Because I think what is it like the last 10 years, maybe longer. Every team that's won it has been like essentially east of the Mississippi, just about. And so yeah, Kansas, a lot of their I think a decent amount of their players they've won. They won it last year. I think they had a couple key pieces return. They're one of the top teams this year. And they're typically a safe bet. It feels weird not to be talking about like a Duke or Kentucky or UNC in terms of like the top teams. No Nova really. So I think I'm going to go UCLA.
All right, interesting pick. I could tell why this is not a college basketball podcast with those picks.
Wow. Who do you have, Tony? Come on.
So first of all, I have Houston losing in the second round to Auburn. Sorry, Jordan. I think Auburn will go pretty far. I have Auburn in the Final Four.
Wow.
UCLA, I have UCLA getting pretty far. I think I got them to the Elite Eight. I think they'll lose to Kansas. So that's a pick there. But I have Duke winning. Yeah, it's Duke. So, but Duke has been on
teams.
If you watched the first half of the season, you would have saw that. But would they have their full parts? They're 17-1 as a group with their full team. They've had injuries this year, but over the last, I think they won their last 8 or 10 in a row, and they've had their team together. They're 17-1 with that team. They ran for the ACC championship. They have an easy path, on their side of the bracket. I know Purdue's pretty good, but I feel like they have better athletes than Purdue, and their bracket really doesn't have anyone that scares me to take them there. And then I think once it gets to the Final Four, John Shire will get that team ready to go and win that title again for Duke in his first year. So
you're not worried about Duke having to get through. I mean, Tennessee, Marquette is really good this year.
No, because I think I have Tennessee. What do I have? I think I have Tennessee losing in the first round.
You have them losing to Louisiana.
Louisiana, yes. If you, they're actually Tennessee has some injuries, and Louisiana has been on kind of a roll. And I think in some cases Louisiana has been favored in some of the betting out there. So I actually do follow college basketball, guys. I know the rest of the staff here a little behind, so I'll educate these guys here in the next few weeks. Maybe we'll start a college basketball podcast. But
That could be fun.
Tony, is your favorite team also Notre Dame for college basketball?
Yeah, I follow. Yeah, I like Notre Dame.
The February.
But I do like my Purdue boys. But
was it February? They were in no win February.
What, Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it was Mike Bray should have been gone 2 years ago. So yeah, he's a terrible head coach. I think Notre Dame needs a lot of work. So we're not going to talk about Notre Dame basketball on this podcast. That's a whole other discussion. So they're down there with the Rutgers of the world. So we gotta get all that kind of station. So, they didn't make it. Okay, they lost. At least Notre Dame had the right to this. lose before they even get to those tournaments, not to lose inside of the tournaments. Okay.
When they were first seeded.
Yeah. Are you not a Notre Dame basketball fan, Jordan, or what?
No, I'm a Notre Dame basketball fan. I just don't watch college basketball too much anymore.
I got you. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that was interesting basketball corner. We'll see if we'll bring you some updates from college basketball maybe next few weeks, as I can educate these guys and teach them the ways of basketball. I don't know if you guys do. I play basketball in school, so I'm more of a basketball guy than football anyway.
We can tell.
So I can, next time we get together, maybe in April, maybe we'll play some, some basketball. I'll show you guys a couple things. But yeah, until then, guys, keep sending us your mailbag questions in the Flat Pod on Twitter, in the Flat Podcast on our website. We look forward to bringing you some more content next week, making fun of Rutgers ECU as we always do. And until then, we'll talk to you guys. Bye.